Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. Welcome to this video. It's been quite a while since my last video, and the reason is I was on holiday and I was missing a topic that I was really passionate about talking. But as it is sometimes, with some thinking, I found a topic which really interests me, where I've seen many videos but I was missing the details. And it's about the general topic of watch collecting, but also about watch investment. So is a watch a good investment or not? I will give a very quick answer in a minute, but also talk a little bit about my real experience. So I'm not a dealer. I'm just a regular guy who has a passion for watch collecting and wants to kind of talk about more or less my last 10 years in watch collecting, to give people real insight. How are you selling watches? Are they a good investment overall, watches? The quick answer is no, they are not. I've had some very few watches where I've made a plus, but a small plus, which I will go into. So you will get here real insights of a real watch person, buying watches as a collector and selling watches as I'm making funds for new watches. That's basically the only point when I sell a watch, is either I want funds for a new watch, or for some reason I don't like the watch anymore. So this is what I will talk about, and you will get real numbers from me, what my experiences are when I buy from the AD and when I buy used. I buy very rarely used, but I used to buy some used watches, like how this compares. So if you're interested, do check it out, this video, and stay until the end. I will focus on the following brands because it's the ones that I'm mostly have in my collection and mostly sell, or if I sell them. So you can see here the brands is Breitling, Panerai, Tudor, and Rolex. So Rolex, I have not really sold Rolex, but I'll go into the story at the end. So to start off, I will start with the brand. This is Panerai. If you've seen some videos of my channel, you know that I love this brand. I actually have a new watch incoming very soon. I'm very excited about a Panerai. I'm getting my AD is sorting it out at the moment, and I will share the unboxing once it's here. I hope in the next few days or a week. So Panerai has been the brand which really started collecting for me. My very first watch was not a Panerai, it was actually a Breitling, and my second watch was a Rolex. I have videos on this, so if you're interested, do check it out. But Panerai was really the first brand I started collecting. Having several watches and really having this need to collect is what started about 5-6 years ago, I would say. And in total, I have, as I said, I will give real numbers. In total, I have sold until this point, so this is the middle of 2025 when this video comes out, and I have sold 11 Panerai watches, which was a bit shocking to me, I must say. I have my iPad here, you can see it here on the side, and I actually looked at the numbers, how many I sold and for what I sold them for what I bought them for, and it's a bit shocking, but I am not regretting, because I love this brand, and especially with Panerai, but also with other brands, you need to kind of start in collecting, and then your taste changes, your know-how progresses, and then you start to change that collection a little bit. So that has been the reason why I have so many sold watches of Panerai. So the watches you see here are not for sale. I'm not planning to sell them. I'm very happy with them. These are actually from each brand my current favorites. So this is just to kind of demonstrate the watches I'm talking about, or the brands I'm talking about. So to go into some detail about Panerai, the next few minutes will be about Panerai. 11 watches, as I said, and I lost pretty unbelievably pretty much 1,000 euros or dollars, the way it's more or less the same at the moment, per watch. That as a number itself, I would say, is okay, considering that most of these watches were new. I will go now into some detail of, not about every watch that I sold. I don't think this is what interests everybody. What interests is maybe like for what did I buy them and for what did I sell them. So I'll not go through every single watch, but I can say this. If I have bought a Panerai used, I've made very little loss on reselling it. Mostly this was for watches that I bought, I would say 5 years ago, before I had a really good relationship with a couple of my ADs. That's when I started to collect, and the easier way is when you start to buy used. You don't have the high retail price. Panerai has a pretty high retail price. Most watches are now between 9 and 10,000 euros in my region, so it's really a lot. And I didn't have a very good relationship yet to kind of have the possibility to negotiate this price. But I'll go into that too. So when I bought used, I usually saved about 30% of the retail, because the person I always bought in very good condition, so almost not used, not polished, so they were not vintage Panerai, they were more like rather new but not worn, and I always bought them about 20 to 30% off the retail price. And I bought them used. I have a couple of dealers also on Chrono 24, if you know this. So when I sold it, I used it, of course, so the watch was used, and I had it maybe half a year or maybe even 1.5, never so long, I would say, with used ones. I never really could bond with used watches. That's another topic for another video, but that was my main issue with used watches. They never really felt mine, to be mine. So maybe 400 or 500 euros I lost on a watch when I bought it for 5,000. I lost about 10%, you could say. So if you buy a Panerai used and you actually use it and resell it within a year or two, most likely you will lose more or less 10% if you sell it directly. If you sell it through a dealer, you probably lose 20%, because he needs to, or they need to, of course, also make some money. So that's kind of my experience buying used Panerai. This is focused on Panerai. When I bought Panerai new and I sell it again, I make a massive loss, I must say. It's really an issue, which is why I always take very long until I decide on a Panerai. And when I buy a Panerai like this one, it's a really iconic piece where I know I will not get tired of it within a year or so. I don't know what it's in 5 or 10 years, but I have this now 2 or 3 years, and I'm happy as I was the day I got it. Also on this strap, I think it's a beautiful calf leather strap of Panerai. So when I bought new directly from the boutique, there is basically almost no discount, and I lost pretty much 35-40% on the retail price within a year. So once again, when I buy from the boutique, it's really, I'm very careful, because my taste change sometimes with Panerai, or they bring another dial color of the same watch I like more, and then I want that. So you need to be careful about that, and that's pretty tough. Losing 35-40% on a watch is pretty incredible. If it costs 8 or 9K, you can do the math. It's about 2,500 to 3,000 euros that you lose on one single watch. That has only been the case with one Panerai, which was the first one I bought, or the second one I bought at the boutique. And since then, I've been very careful buying at the boutique. When I buy from my preferred dealers, so there's one main one, but there's also another one. Depending on the watch, I get a pretty good discount. So it varies between 10 and 20%. Once again, it really depends on the watch, but it's a really good deal, because if for some reason I don't like it anymore in a year or two, I don't lose 40%, but I lose maybe 15-20%. Because I'm already from the retail off about 15 to 20. So then you sell it about for 60% of the value. That's my experience with Panerai. So the sale value on the used market in a good condition, I think the condition is what's important, but I always talk about when used, it's a good condition. It goes for about 60% on the market. So you lose 40% if you buy at 100% retail price. The less you pay from the retail, the less you will lose. So that's my experience, that I lose when I buy new with a good discount. I lose about 20-25% on the watch, on the Panerai watch. So I hope this And the video is quite long, but I think it's an informative video, so I try to be long. If you want to skip certain parts, then do so. If not, I think it's interesting to keep on listening. So this is Panerai, 11 watches sold, about €1,000 loss on each watch. Some watches just a few €100, some watches more. So this is why the average has been 1,000 over 6 years more or less. Yeah. So that's the story on Panerai. And I have no regrets because it brought me to, educated me on the brand. There is no watch I am missing really from this. There is one which I'm rebuying in a new version, which you will see hopefully in a couple of days or weeks. So yeah, no regrets there. Really was educational for me. But it is quite a price I had to pay. Then I'd like to go to the next brand. This is Breitling. Breitling is also a brand I really love, as it was my very first watch that I got as a gift from my dad. It brought me into watch collecting at the very beginning, and I love the brand. They've had a lot of changes through the years, just like Breitling, so they are not as consistent in my collection as Rolex is, for example, where there's little desire to sell. If there is a desire to sell, it is more about an exchange for another piece. But I'll go into Rolex at the end. So with Breitling, I have sold not so many watches, but also because I've bought less. I've never bought a Breitling used, so I've always bought it from my AD, from one AD. And I sold so far 5 watches of Breitling through, again, talking about the last 6 or 7 years. And I lost about €6,000 on 5 watches, so a little bit more, 1,200 per watch. So the loss is a bit higher, even though I never bought it used, and I always bought it at a quite good, healthy discount. Yeah, not crazy discount, but again, similar to what I get at Panerai or from certain ADs, about this 15 to 20% reduction on the original, on the retail price, more or less. Yeah. But again, it depends on the time, it depends on the model, but it's a healthy discount. I'm very happy with it. Yeah. And it's the reason I bought even these 5 plus the 3 I currently have. So I bought 8 Breitling watches, over the last year. So about one each year. But here the loss is with some watches, not so much. So for example, the Breitling Super Ocean Heritage, I had the previous model, so they just released a new one. I had the previous one and the one before that. So I had both. And at some point I probably will have the new Super Ocean also, because I love the bracelet and everything. But on those 2 watches, I lost 1,000 each, more or less, from what I paid. So again, here you will lose on Breitling. If you buy it at a full retail, you would lose at least 40%, at least, mostly also 50%. This is a great condition. But discounts in Breitling are everywhere, so people are always kind of getting good deals, and when they are selling, they're selling it on very good deals also. But it hurts if you buy at full retail, or generally it hurts in selling a Breitling. Is really tough because there's a lot of offers out there, not as many as Panerai. So when I sell, it's always a bit tough. Takes longer than a Panerai. Panerai could be gone within a week, and a Breitling could be gone after a few months or 4 to 6 weeks. That's my experience, once again, in Europe. Yeah. So the watch I made the most devastating loss on, I made almost 3,000 loss of this 6,000 on one watch, which was a limited edition, the Avi 765 1953 re-edition. I have a video of this, a beautiful watch, but the vintage vibe was too vintage for me, which is why I sold it, and I made a massive loss. So also this has made me very kind of be careful with the brand, because I made a pretty big loss there, and I fell out of love with the watch within a year. So once again, this made me more patient in buying. I think also this was important for me to have this experience of a big loss, that you realize, okay, you need to be careful. But yeah, that's why for this watch I took almost 5 years until I bought it. So I bought it once they discontinued it. Also, I bought it new from my AD, and I'm very, very happy with it. And I love this watch. It's beautiful. I'm happy I did it. I regret that I waited so long, because they, of course, in the last 5 years, made the retail price more expensive. So it's been more expensive for me to purchase this compared to 5 years ago, but I'm happy with it. But I'm a lot more careful with Breitling now. And which is also a reason why I'm waiting on the Super Ocean Heritage. Yeah, of course, it's also because there's a few other watches I prefer at the moment, but I'm being more careful. So yeah, that's the experience of Breitling. It takes longer to sell. It has even more discount in the used market. So about 10% more loss on each watch that I make, 15% more than I do compared to Panerai. Big difference, I would say. And for some reason, Breitling is not getting this under control. So I think it's part of the brand. You need to understand people will get this on a discount and will sell it on an even higher discount. So that's the way this kind of works. So those are those two brands. Hope you like it until now. There will be two more brands, Tudor and Rolex. I'll try to be as quick as I can, but this is supposed to be an educational video, so I hope you are enjoying it until now. So here we go, Tudor, my current favorite. I've had a bit of an overhaul of my Tudor collection in the last, I would say, year since I bought this watch. This changed my whole collection because of the bracelet, because of the blue dial, and the chronograph. Those are my three favorite elements of Tudor and generally of watches. The bracelet, the dial, and the complication chronograph is what I really love. So with Tudor, I haven't sold so many watches. It's been more in the last couple of years, and it's been more when I upgrade to a new one. So it's not that I want to get out of the brand, but it's more I get a newer model, which appeals more to me. Yeah, and I've sold also 5 watches of Tudor so far. And I've lost a little less than 750 to 800 euro per watch. So you can see here again, better value on Tudors on the used market than, for example, especially also Breitling. So I made a lot less losses on Tudors as I did with Breitlings, and also less than with Panerai. So it's a good brand, even though I must say I don't get discounts for Tudor watches. So all the watches I bought were at full retail. There might have been a little bit off, a couple of €100 here or there, as a nice gesture from my ADs, but I've not had massive discounts. Yeah, there's been a few €100 per watch maybe. And I must say they sell very quickly, yeah, and competitive price. So when I would buy almost at 100% retail, let's say not 95% of the retail, and I would lose per watch about 15%. Yeah, I haven't lost. I've lost at a few watches a little bit more, so I've lost about 25% on the Black Bay 58 Blue and the Chrono Panda, and I sold those 2 watches because this watch has both of those watches in one. It's blue dial, it's chronograph, and it has a better bracelet. That's why I lost 2 of my favorite watches, or sold them, because I wouldn't wear them anymore since I have this one. So this kind of made this overhaul, or otherwise I wouldn't have sold them. I sold the Black Bay Pro because I didn't like it. I had the black dial, and I sold it within less than half a year, and I made about 10% loss on the retail. So it was totally fine. I sold always Tudors directly, I think, except for the last 2 that I sold through a dealer, through a used dealer who was quite competitive in my region, and there the loss was a little bit higher. Yeah, so they took about 25% off the retail. Yeah, so need to be careful again there, but it's a bit better if you sell it yourself. You will make about 10-15, I would say 15% loss. If you get a good deal at the AD. I think the prices have changed, so Tudor has really upped the retail price. Since then, I think your losses will be higher. They will be more like the Breitling range, 35%, 30%. So historically, just to sum up Tudor, I've sold a few watches from Tudor 3-4 years ago, and I only made like 10% loss on the retail, maybe a little bit more, but not a lot more. Because the retail price was competitive and the market was a lot more competitive than it is now. And now they have upped the retail price and they're flooding the market. And this is why I believe that the price, people are not willing to pay as much anymore. So you have to go another 10-15% down from what it was 2-3 years ago. So if I sell a Tudor today in 2025, I probably make 25 to 30% loss on the retail. That's my experience. Yeah. But beautiful watches. Again, here it's a journey. So also the journey led me to this one, and I'm very happy with it. So the last one that people might have been waiting for is now generally when I sell Rolex watches. And fun fact, I have actually never sold a Rolex watch. So I've never sold it outright. I have about 7 or 8 in the collection, and I love them all and I wear them all. But because I have a certain connection to all my especially my Rolex watches, because it's been work getting them. It's been hard getting them. It's been waiting sometimes. I've never had to wait too long for a watch, which has made me happy. So the most time I've had to wait was for this, and this was 1 year. So it's completely fine. So if you're patient and you're a good customer, I think you will get your watches. But that's another video I can make if people are interested. So let me know if you're interested in that. I have done some AD videos already. But because there is such a bond with my AD and also with the Rolex watches, I never have this itch to sell. And it's kind of good to know that they are not a safe investment in that sense, but it's like money in the bank, more or less. If you have a Rolex, it will not lose 30-40% value like a Breitling or a Tudor or a Panerai. So I'm not less inclined to sell it then for some reason. And the only reason when I have kind of sold Rolex watches, there's only been 2 watches, one vintage GMT Pepsi, kind of exchanged that for a new Rolex that I got then, so at the AD. So I didn't really make a loss, made barely a plus, I think €1,000 plus, even though the market price at that moment was much higher for my watch, but it was a deal I wanted to make. And another watch I sold, also barely a plus, but also again I made it as a down payment for another Rolex. So at the AD, so I never really sold it outright somewhere, which kind of makes me proud, because I never liked the flipping game or making profit on watches, etc. So I've never really made a profit on a watch, unfortunately. I think there's been one Omega I made a profit on, which I didn't talk about, the Moon watch. Speedy Tuesday, the first version. That's the only watch I made a profit on and that I sold, and the rest has always been a loss. But I'm not regretful. So that's the Rolex story. It's quite short in terms of selling, because I've only sold 2 watches, and they were not really sold to the open market, but through my dealer in exchange for a new Rolex that appealed more to me. That was really the only reasons that I did it. So if you really want to call watches investments, I think my experience, the only one where it's been the same or a little bit above, about 10% above, through many years of ownership, is Rolex. Everything else always loses money, except it's a very niche special edition like the Speedy Tuesday or Speedmaster or other watches. You can be lucky, but you have to know that watches is not a good investment. That's kind of to close off the video. That's my experience really through the last about 10 years, mainly the last 6 or 7 years. And I've bought a lot of watches, sold a lot of watches. So the ones that I sold now are just the brands of Panerai, Tudor and Breitling. And that's about 21 actually, interestingly, over the years. And I've made a loss on each and every watch. I hope this was interesting. I hope this was educational and it was real details, not just talking about watches are good investment or they're not good investments, but without the detail. I always like this detail. So if you would like to know more, write in the comments. I try to answer every comment, at least the ones where there's relevant questions and an interest. So let me know if you would like to see something like this on other brands. So I've sold a few other brands from Omega, or watches from Omega and IWC, but very few watches. The real main ones I've talked about already today. And in the last year or 2, just to close that off, I've sold a lot less watches than I used to 5 years ago, where I was really starting the collecting and starting to find my taste. And now I'm a lot more stable. So I maybe sell 1 or 2 watches a year, and buy 3 or 4, kind of to keep this not in an escalating way, but keep the collection under control, and to make funds for new watches, or watches that I never wear, or where there's a new version which is just better than there, and there is no real connection to a certain watch, then I would still do it. But generally speaking, I'm not buying and selling every month anymore like I did maybe a few years ago. And I must say I'm a lot more happier as a watch collector now than I was 5 years ago, I think. But it is a journey. So this journey is my hobby, and this is why I will keep the journey going. This is why I made the channel. So if you liked everything that you saw and heard so far, do give me a like, give me a follow so you can see future videos. It's a hobby, and each video that is viewed a lot by you guys out there motivates me for the next one. That's really that's why it's important. So yeah, thanks for listening this long, and yeah, expect a video soon about an unboxing, and I'm pretty excited about that. So thanks a lot, and goodbye.